All right, everyone. On today's episode of Infinite Abilities podcast, I have my good friend Gery Ryan, who is the director of Organizations That Matter. He is a fellow 10X business coach, and he is passionate about helping people with their success. All right, Gery, welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Nick. I'm super delighted to be here with you, my good friend, and being part of this podcast at this really early stages of its being born. So I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted you to be my first guest because my first ever podcast that I was on was actually yours. And that was awesome. Do you mind telling my audience about your podcast?
Yes, so my podcast is called the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. I've actually had it since 2009, folks. And we're up to an episode about 170 or something like that. But we really ramped it up throughout 2023, now doing weekly episodes. And we focus on all sorts of levels of success. Leadership in particular, because that's one of my key suites. We focus on a lot of leadership from what's called a servant leadership perspective and how to lead so actually do get high performance results. We talk about personal high performance and living a life of absolute gratitude and abundance. We also talk about, obviously, business coaching, information and entrepreneurship, and how to really, again, serve the folk that you're trying to serve. And one of the things that we share with you, Nick, is that we have a duty to be successful.
Yes, we do. That's for sure. Because, we can't help our families, our loved ones, or anybody else if we're not successful ourselves. It's
100%.
very important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I know that you just released a new book, and I know that you are super excited about it. So go ahead and tell everybody about that.
Okay, thanks. It's actually my third book because my first book was called What Really Matters for Young Professionals. Now, interestingly, even though I wrote it for people at early career starters, CEOs have found that as a nice little trigger reminder about some behaviors that really help. We wrote a #1 Amazon Kindle bestseller, Disruption Leadership Matters, Lessons for Leaders from the Pandemic, which really highlighted the pre-existing mindset a lot of leaders have that really is detrimental to their culture and the people working in the business that came to the surface throughout the pandemic. So we talk about that. It's like a structured way of leading at a high performance level. But as Nick, you just mentioned, Yes for Success, How to Achieve Life, Harmony and Fulfillment. It's my brand new book. The audiobook version is literally weeks away. I'm pretty sure the audiobook version will be published. In fact, by the time this episode goes live to air. One of the things with the book there, Nick, and why I'm so passionate about it is that I think most people agree that it's a good idea to have a personal vision, to have some clarity about where you want to go in life. But most people don't actually know how to create that vision. They know they should have it, but they don't know how to do it. And then even if they do have one, they're not really clear about, well, what do I actually have to do that's going to enable my unique version of success to come to life and come to fruition? And so, Yes for Success, How to Achieve Life, Harmony and Fulfillment goes through 6 integrated key elements that help people to clarify their vision and then work out quite specifically in absolute detail about what they need to do for each step of the way for their unique version. Because that's the brutal reality. You can't choose someone else's version of success. You've got to define your own and then go and make it happen exactly like you are, Nick Yerhart.
Yes, sir. I agree. And I can't wait for the audio version so I can download it and listen to it. I know it's good. I listened to your second book, and that was amazing. So thank you for what you do and educating and helping people. It's really awesome.
Yes, thank you.
What was a defining moment in your entrepreneurial journey that significantly shaped your approach to business?
Okay, great question. Thank you. So, because I've been in business now for 17 years, we've literally just had a few days ago our 17th birthday. So that means I'm in my 18th year of operation. I hope people can understand those mathematics. So really, for me, there's actually been three. So it was the first time when I started the business, which was really towards the end of 2006, leading into 2007 when we got started. And I'd been in a corporate environment and been exposed to consulting and been exposed to the opportunity to start my own business, actually as a result of a redundancy opportunity. I didn't want the redundancy to happen in the organization I was in, and I didn't want the other 500 people I was working with to be in a forced redundancy scenario. But these turning points, these moments in life that are often not in your full control, can create massive opportunity. So I have been a believer for a long time, Nick, that when difficulty comes, you've got to train yourself to say, well, what's the opportunity here? So for me, with a redundancy, when I'd put my blood, sweat and tears literally into an organization for 12 years, and it came to an end through something that was out of my control and really out of all of the directors' controls, this opportunity to start my own business came along. So that was the first one. Then there was, in Australia, the great financial crisis of 2008. In my business, didn't really have an impact until 2010. And in 2010, it hit us like a tidal wave. Like, we probably should have seen it coming given what was going around the rest of the world, but somehow we rode it early on. It was quite fine, but all of a sudden the economy just tanked. And, I had to really reevaluate the business because, to be brutally honest, I was so fortunate when I started my business in 2007. I literally didn't have to do any marketing. All the businesses came. I mean, the business just kept coming and coming and coming. And it was an incredible time on many levels, but it actually created a false sense of security that the great financial crisis brought to the surface. So then it was like, holy moly, I got to go learn some marketing and sales skills. And so that was that period. But even then, I still didn't fully immerse myself in that set of skill set because, and I think a lot of the population have this mindset, Nick, that I actually had a mindset that marketers were actually close to being criminals and salespeople were even worse. So for me to actually be doing marketing and sales, and I remember one of my mentors in 2006, he said to me, Gary, his name's Jock McNeish. He actually is an illustrator in this book. And he said, Gary, you have to understand that you are a marketer and a salesperson. I'm like, I don't like those words. He said, I'm a businessman. I'm a coach. I'm a consultant. I'm not a marketer or sales. He said, you have to understand you are, because if you don't do those activities, you're not going to get to serve people and you're not going to get to make the difference. So even though he said that to me, I didn't fully understand it. And I reckon, to be brutally honest, the third time that this point came around was when the global financial crisis the pandemic occurred in March of 2020. And within 5 business days, folks, a business that I built up for 14 years at that stage that was going, in my mind, really well. I thought I'd sort of made it. 90% of my business stopped in 5 business days. Right, 90%. I've got 5 children, folks. Now, it wasn't as if at the time there was other jobs you could go and do, because I actually live in Melbourne, Australia, which still is the major city in the world that was locked down for the longest period throughout the whole period of that pandemic over 2.5 years. Like we did it pretty hard from a lockdown point of view. So it's not like you could just go and pick up another job and earn money. And so that got me going, okay, I still never really addressed that issue about sales and marketing. And so I went hunting. And eventually that hunt, really through the influence of my twin brother, Dennis, led me to Grant Cardone. And as you know, I joined the licensee program. And 7 months later, I feel so proud and delighted that I am more than happy to call myself a marketer and a salesperson, as well as the coach and businessman titles that I've used for a long time. So it's a bit of a long story there, Nick, but I hope that addresses, for me, there's really 3 instances that have occurred over that 17-year period.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, there's a lot of valuable info in that people can use so they can, improve on their business. So thank you. Next question. what was, I don't like to use the word failure, but we kind of all have little failures or big ones, but, I believe if you don't give up, you can't fail. But we all have those moments in life or in business that we, you know, say are failures. What was one of those for you?
My biggest failure was getting comfortable in 2017. I got to an income level with the business and personal income that was, from my mindset at the time, I made it. And it wasn't until the pandemic came along and the lessons that taught me that I realized I had gotten comfortable. I didn't think I'd gotten comfortable in 2017, but the truth is I got comfortable, Nick, and I stopped doing the work that I'd done to get to that level. And so having gone through that experience, I am so clear about the danger of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And also the power of, as you and I would call them, 10x goals. Because if I had truly had 10x goals in 2017, I never would have gotten comfortable. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, that simple tactic that we use of what's your projected income, and you say a number and say, okay, multiply it by 10. Mm-hmm. What would that mean for you? What would that mean for your business? What would that mean for your family? What would that mean for the people you're serving? What would that mean for your impact in a positive way to the community and the broader world? And it really shifts your mind, but also creates some tension. It's like, whoa, man, I got to keep staying busy. I got to keep learning. Now, I've been a voracious reader and learner in my life, but again, in 2017, the levels to which I was doing that dropped to comfortable levels, which might be high compared to most people out there, I suspect, because I know most people don't read or really focus on their learning. Certainly people listening to this podcast would be like you and me, I suspect. They will be people prepared to put some time and effort into their learning. But, so for a lot of people, what I was doing in 2017 probably would be for them, high levels. But compared to what I've done throughout my life and certainly what I'm doing now, I was nowhere near it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why Grant teaches us have 10x goals, because basically your goals are so big that you're gonna keep striving for a long time to reach them. So you can't get reach. So that's why it's so important. Don't get comfortable. We've all done it. I've done it, and it's not good. So yeah, thank you. So, as a business owner, how do you handle stress and prevent burnout?
Okay, again, great questions. So I'm going to actually relate back to the last question about don't get comfortable, because it could sound like, oh my God, you're just constantly chasing something. And the answer to that question is yes. But what I teach in Yes for Success is there's two things that you really need to be doing. Is you need to have those big goals and you need to be dreaming and you need to be focused, but you also need to celebrate your progress. You need to celebrate your movement down the bottom and actually stop and pause and go, wow, that was really cool. I did that. Now, not for too long. Don't get stuck there. Sometimes it's appropriate to actually stop and maybe go out for dinner or celebrate, like do a proper celebration. But you do need to notice your progress. And that helps. That tactic actually helps from a business point of view, helps you manage the stress. So, when you do get a deal, when you do close on someone, you should woohoo, you should celebrate that. And in that moment, be like I'm really happy with that. That's what we're here to do, right? And then you move back into the next thing you got to do. So it's a combination to manage your stress. When you have big goals, you must actually consciously celebrate and recognize the successes you're building along the way. And, talking about your wins. And every win matters. So whether it's a small win or a really big win, every win matters. So a small win might be, hey, I read a page of a book. I'm not you thought of yourself as not a reader, and I read a page of a book, and then I read a page of a book 2 days in a row, or maybe I listened to a podcast an audio book for 3 minutes, and then I listened the next day. Those small wins you should celebrate, right? When you're on a journey, and then of course there'll be bigger things that you should celebrate as well.
You know, you went right where I was hoping you would go with that answer. Celebrate your small wins. You know, that's something that I talk about myself and that I implement into my life. And I do that because I experienced a burnout a while back. And it was because I was go all the time. And I wasn't looking at how far I came. And I wasn't looking at the successful things that I did that were actually small wins. But I didn't take the time to look at them and be like, hey, that's awesome. I did good, you know? So, yeah, it's very important.
And in addition, I believe you need to be exercising. You need to be moving. I think, your physical health, how that impacts your mental health. I believe you need to be proactive with your mental health. So I am proactive with a form of meditation that I've found that works for me. Now, folks out there, you hear the word meditation, and I'm here. I am in Melbourne, Australia. I'm a guy from down under, and I'm talking about meditation. I might not have imagined I would have said that myself 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, but certainly since I've run my own business, I've found that is so important to find a methodology that works for you. I've found one that works for me, and it only takes literally 5 to 10 minutes per day. Sometimes I can go longer if I want, but that work and that dedication to that helps keep you grounded and helps keep your mind free, because one of the things when you're working towards big goals is the mechanics that you have to go through, the massive action you have to take to make it happen. You're diving deep into the details of everything. And sometimes when you're in the details of everything and you can see how big and massive the work can be, that can mess with your brain from a mental health point of view. So you need to be balancing that out along the way with dedicated time and focus to help keep this clear with the exercise. Like, too many people drop off their exercise when they get super busy. Like, you just cannot afford to do that is how I would answer that question, Nick.
That's a great way of putting it. And yeah, I started meditating about a year ago now. I didn't do it every day for a while, but now it's daily because, yeah, it does help. It clears your mind. It helps you focus. And, it's not what I thought meditating was. Like, you just have to, like you said, you have your own way. So everybody should just find their own way. I got mine, and yeah. And actually, last week, 3 days, I meditated for a full hour for 3 days in a row. Let me tell you, that's intense. Except for the third day, I can't really count it as a full hour of meditation because I woke up when my alarm went off. I fell asleep, and then when my timer went off for the hour, I was like, I wonder when I fell asleep. So I can't really count that one. But yeah.
I think you can. Personally, I understand why you might think you can't count it, but our brains are still working when we're asleep because we're in this theta brainwave state. So our brains are still working when we're asleep. So there is aspects of meditating to take you into sleep that affect your dreams, where actually can help you when you're awake. So there might be still some value there, Nick.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, so one thing that I like to do with my guests is what I call humanize them. So I would like to know, obviously you're from Australia, but can you tell us more about maybe your childhood or, your early years into your work career?
Sure, thanks, Nick. And so I am a twin, and my twin brother actually lives in Florida on the Panhandle at a beautiful town called Fort Walton Beach. And I must admit, growing up, he being my best friend, I never imagined that my twin brother would live on the other side of the world, quite literally. And he's been in the USA since 1998. So this is the 26th year, which is nearly half of our lives that he's lived away from me. But we were born numbers 9 and 10 of 11 children. So in the modern world, there's not that many families that are that big where you've got mum and dad and then 11 children. And we were probably very lucky on many levels, Nick, to have been born at the younger end in the house, because mum and dad had been taught by all our older siblings how to parent by then when we came along. We're what's called a blue-collar family, so going to university or college was not something that occurred in my family. My father was taken out of school when he was 15 years of age. He was the fourth of 13 children in a country town called Bendigo here in country Victoria, Australia. And he was forced out of school to earn money to pay for his siblings and the family's life. And then he went off to the Second World War and served in that. And my mother actually grew up in Sydney, and she was one of 6 children, which was a bit strange for her because she was of an Anglican religion and my father was Catholic. So both Christian faith, but in those days, in the 1940s, after the Second World War, it was very unusual for a Catholic and an Anglican to come together and get married. So there was some concern from some of both of their family about them getting married. And then, you know, bless my mother, she chose to become a Catholic after the second child was born because she didn't feel it was right that my father was going to church on his own on a Sunday without his wife and children. So she made a massive commitment to his religion and therefore hers. And so we grew up in an environment which I would call, with what I know now, servant leadership. And all of my 6 brothers are blue-collar people initially in their careers who got trade skills, plumbing and fitter and turning and those sorts of things, and carpentry, like my father's a carpenter. But at the age of 10, Nick, I was asked, as my twin brother was, where did we want to go to high school? And my immediate answer was not about high school. We lived very close to the local university, and I literally been riding my bike around it when I was a little boy. And I'd always just imagined I would go to that university. And I was quite smart at what you would call elementary school. So I said, I want to go to university. And Dad was like, university? I'm talking about high school. What do you mean going to university? And by the way, what are you going to even do at university? And I said, I don't know. I just know I don't want to be a tradesperson. Right? He goes, okay. And he turns to my twin brother and he says, well, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'm happy to go to the technical school where my brothers have gone to learn a trade. And he goes, okay. Comes back to me. He goes, so which high school do you think you're going to go to? And there was a local private boys' school that one of my friends from elementary school was going to. So I named that school. It was not very expensive, but it was still expensive in my family's reality. So my father, and this is powerful, folks. My father, I remember I'm the firstborn of twins, number 9 out of 11 children. He turns to me and says, okay, Gary, I'll go and get myself a second part-time job on top of his full-time job to pay for me to go to that local private school so I could go to university. Right. And so he did that. And when I was at high school, we call it wagging if you skip school when you're not supposed to here in Australia. And I never wagged a single day because even though my friends would tease me and bully me about not going off to the shops and cinema and all sorts of things and skipping school, I just couldn't disrespect my father because I knew the work he was doing to pay for me to be there. I just couldn't do it. And I also made sure I got good grades. Equally with that, I got my first job when I was 10 years of age, doing 6 mornings a week, delivering newspapers over about a 7-mile distance. And rain, hail or shine, 6 days a week. I earned $11.26 a week. I can still remember how much it was. And that was getting up at 5 a.m. Every morning, 6 days a week, every week of the year. We didn't really go on very many holidays. We certainly didn't go on holidays to amazing destinations. We literally only went to family around the state or the next state up the road where we could stay for free. I never actually went to a restaurant until I was 17 years of age, and I was going with my then girlfriend's family to a restaurant. I remember sitting there saying, what do I do with all of this cutlery? I knew what cutlery was, but I didn't know the way it was all laid out, how to do it. And I've certainly been to lots of restaurants since folks, but that was just my upbringing. And so I've had a very blessed and fortunate upbringing. And I suppose the last part of that story is, unfortunately, my father got cancer once he retired from his main job. And I was the only one of the 11 children still living at home. So I helped my mother nurse him for 2 years throughout his cancer. And I did finish my first degree 3 weeks before he passed. So at least he did get to see the fruition of that extra work that he'd done, that I did actually get a university degree. And I've now got 3 degrees and multiple other forms of qualifications ever since.
That's a really awesome and inspiring story, and I'm really sorry about your father. Unfortunately, that's one thing that we share in common. We both lost our fathers way too soon.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean it's a hard thing, but you keep moving, and for me, it gives me a purpose to keep his last name going. So.
100%, Nick. And my children, who were born a long time after my father passed away, they are aware of his characteristic and the things that mattered to him that we've shared with our children. They refer to Poppy Eddie, which is what he was known as, to his grandchildren, and we've kept them alive in that way. And I feel very, very grateful that I had parents, both mum and dad, who, while we didn't get lots of hugs and cuddles because there was just too many with 11 children, the love and support that we got was just extraordinary. And I'm so grateful for the parents that I was born into. And I feel a duty to respect what I was born into as a result of my life. And so, yes, of course, I would wish my dad got another 20 years. That's not the case. But look, lots of people don't necessarily even know who their dad is. Lots of people don't even necessarily have a great relationship because of what went on there. I mean, for the time I got, the 24 years I had with my father, I feel very blessed.
Yeah, and I feel very blessed for the years that I had with my dad, and without him, I wouldn't be who I am today at all. There's a chance that without him, I wouldn't even walk. Therefore, There's a chance that without him, I would be living in like a nursing home right now. You never know, so I'm very thankful for my dad. So, all right. So I got one more question for you. What does my slogan, "Your abilities are infinite," mean to you?
I love that question, Nick. I think that most people are not aware that they've allowed themselves to limit what they can do through what's going on in their head. And some folk out there might look at you and say immediately, Nick has different abilities, as you beautifully call them, but we both know that they might say a disability, right? And not realize that actually they've got a disability within their own mindset, right? And so for me, your abilities are infinite is about start inside your mind and be willing to grow and learn and dream and live to your potential. Because, Nick, I think one of the things that I absolutely love and respect and am inspired by you is that you are living to your potential. You discovered you weren't. right? You discovered you weren't, and you made a decision. I'm going to live to my potential. And I have cerebral palsy, and it's like, okay, that's what I got. So what? I'm going to live to my potential, and it's why folks. And I know Nick hasn't asked me to come on and do this, but this is why, folks. If you are someone that recognizes you have limitations in your own mindset, you want Nick Yerhart to be your coach, because Nick Yerhart knows what has to be done to work on this and make it so you can create and live to your potential, because he is doing it against an obstacle that most of us can't even nearly imagine. Right? We think we can imagine, but we can't actually imagine what Nick has had to go throughout his entire life. Maybe to get to the point where he got to a couple of years ago, where he went, "Hey, I got this ability. I need to share it. I need to learn the skills so I can actually share it." So, folks, that's my answer to your question, Nick. And get out there, folks. Hire this man, because he absolutely will enable you to break out of the chains that you might have around your mindset that's limiting you and stopping you from reaching your potential.
Thank you, Gery. That actually means a lot to me, so thank you. And yeah, another reason why I know I can help people is because I had a very limited mindset just a few years ago. I was very negative. I didn't like who I was, all of that, blah, blah, blah. We'll go into that on a later episode, but, that's why I know, because if I can pull myself out of that with how bad it was, I can help anyone. That's all there is to it.
100%.
Well, Gery, this was awesome, so thank you so much, and, I can't wait until next time.
You're welcome.
Infinite Abilities podcast. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Remember, your abilities are infinite.